Hi Stampers, this is Angela Meyer. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and today I'm going to show you how to do background paper. Stampin' Up! Sells some really beautiful designer series papers, but sometimes you want something that's unique to your tastes or what you like to do. So today we're going to use the Lovely You Cling Set, and it has all these wonderful little verses, these sweet little flowers, and I'm going to use the glimmer paper, the shimmery white paper. So I'm not sure if you're able to see, but there's some speckles to it. It's just lovely. And we're going to do a background that I can use for multiple cards. So this is an 8.5 by 11. And I did one of these earlier this week. And as you can see, I made all these different cards from one background set, or one page of background. So I used some different colors than what I'm going to do today, but it kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with one 8.5 by 11 sheet of background paper. So today I'm going to be using Pool Party, Pacific Point, and Petal Pink. Pool Party and Petal Pink are from the Subtles set, and Pacific Point is from the Brights collection. So I'm going to get these set up so they're open and ready for me. And give myself something because I'm going to do some stamping off. Stamping off means that I don't want the full bright blue on my leaves, and these are a couple of the leaves that we're going to use from the Lovely You set. So we're going to use this set and this right here to create a pattern. So I'm going to use the full strength of the Pool Party because it's such a pretty color. And then you come in with your secondary color, and because I don't want the full strength, I can actually stamp it off twice and still get a really nice color. Now, as you see, I'm alternating because I want to make sure that I keep going different directions, and I want to keep the pattern alternating. So you can see I keep turning my hand so that the leaves are going a different direction. And I'll come back again with the darker blue. And I can stamp this off twice. Oops, that one's a little dark. Kind of get the idea that you want a pattern of alternating colors. You want to make sure that you stamp off the page so that when you're using your paper, you can utilize every square inch of it if you so want to. You don't have to, but it's great being able to do that. I kind of just keep looking and seeing what direction my leaves are, and that way I can come back and have it be a little bit different. So when you get to the edges, it gets a little more interesting. I just want a little bit showing. Get a little messed up as to what I've done last. Oh, wrong color, wrong color. Kind of have to keep track of yourself. So I've reassembled the pages, or the page, with all the cuts that I need. And as you can see, I'm going to nest it with the Pool Party cardstock. Now I use the stitch rectangles, if you can see that, and I use the largest rectangle, and then for the verses, I'm using the two that are almost the smallest. So you can see there's the smallest of the regular, and then there's two others, and they'll nest really nicely. The spare pieces, what I do is I'll use it on the inside of the card like this. So you just get a little pretty on the inside, and you don't have to stamp anymore because you've already got all these little pieces. So that's how I'll use that. So for this card, I'm using the heavy cardstock, the heavy Whisper White or thick Whisper White, and I of course use the bone folder. And as you can see, it'll nest really nicely together. And then for this portion, once it's together, I'll pop it up with some dimensionals. Now, what I did is I had more of the shimmery white, but I had little scraps. My advice to you is to keep your little scraps in something that you can continue to reach into, because for these little blossoms, you don't need a lot of cardstock. And what I've done is these little blossoms have been cupped up, and the way that I do that is I use this tool and I use the embossing portion of it. So this is one that I've already stamped and fussy cut around, and then I'm just going to do some little circular motions, and as you can see, the petals start to curl up, and then I'm just going to press into each one of the little petals a little bit, just to kind of get the cup look. So you end up with this sweet little blossom that's all cupped up really nicely, and it really pops up from the page. Now I'm going to use the crinkly seam binding that Stampin' Up! Sells, but I wanted it to be the color of the blossoms. So what I've done is I've used a blend, and as you can see, it's got this really nice pale peach color. So I'm going to use the petal pink, and you just run it along. And you can see you get this really pretty color. You may have to do it twice, depending on how well it takes. But it really gives you some choices when you're doing your cards. You don't have to stick with just the colors that Stampin' Up! Gives you. You can actually make them another color. So we'll wrap this around the blue portion and have a little bow over here on this side. But you can see that you just got a really sweet card. You're going to actually get 4 cards with this layout. If you want to alternate it, you might get more. I'm going to show you how I assemble the card with all the pieces. I like the glue because I have a lot of good feelings about it. It's not going to come apart when somebody's had it on their shelf for maybe a couple of months, because I know that people like my mom and other folks, they tend to keep the cards for a long time and you don't want them to fall apart down the road. Nice thing about this glue is it wiggles around a little bit as you need it to. I just try to check all my edges, make sure that all the edges are fairly much the same. I want my ribbon to be tied around the pool party. Looks like I've got lots of extra ribbon there. So I'll just snip it off at an angle. Make it a little smaller. And this portion will be underneath, so and then I'm going to use some dimensionals. Stampin' Up! Has dimensionals 2 different sizes, which is great, and these are the smaller ones. But I wanted you to see the finished product. I kind of stamped my verse a little bit over to the right because I wanted to have room for the bow and the blossoms. And again, I'm just going to center it so that it's equal on all sides. There's a little bit of adjustment that can happen. And then I'm going to put these little blooms. I'm going to actually glue them down. I don't want them coming off. I'm just going to use 3. And then I think I want my bow a little bit smaller, so it's not quite so. And then just for the completion, I'm going to be using the Elegant Faceted Gems. And I'm going to use the smaller ones and put them in the center of the blossoms just to give it that a little extra pop. So you can see the card is just super sweet. Don't forget, you have these little pieces, and I'll cut them to size and I'll put them on the inside so that the inside has just a pretty element to it. Just adds a little bit of elegance. So thank you for joining me.